Salutations. So, as I'm recording this, I am in the final days of my Alaska excursion for 2017. So, as opposed to doing my regular drive home reviews like I normally do, this is a walk home review because I very rarely drive by myself while I'm up here, and I like going for walks because the weather is beautiful. And quite frankly, I put on a lot of weight while I'm here, so walking is good for me. However, I hope you all appreciate that, just how much I love doing these reviews, because I'm kind of taking my life in my hands right now to do this. I mean, you do that anyway whenever you go walking in Alaska, but this summer we've had a lot of bear issues, a lot of bear attacks on trails, and we've also had, I've been on this trail and had a moose step out in front of me. So if all of a sudden I just yell and the camera starts doing this because I'm running, sorry, but I'll try to keep the review going while the bear is chasing me, but don't count on it. So anyway, kind of fitting out here in nature because we're talking about one of the films I've been looking forward to the most this summer, War for the Planet of the Apes. This new Apes cycle, these new films have been the films that have consistently proven me wrong in the best possible ways. Anybody who knows me knows I hate reboots for the main reason that I think 90% of the time the people making the reboot don't understand what made the property important or interesting in the first place. They just kind of take the name and go, okay, that's it. Coming up on a tunnel now. I just want to make sure there's, I don't see anything big in there. So echo is probably going to happen here, so sorry about that. But I feel like these films, these Apes movies, really understood what made the originals so good and built on that momentum, made them their own unique creations, but kept all the good things, okay? I remember thinking when Rise for the Planet of the Apes came out, I was like, oh, come on, let's not do this again. Let's not do another reboot. Leave it alone. It's fine. It was perfect the way it was. Why do we got to do this? It's just going to be terrible. And I was wrong, happily. Rise is an awesome movie. And like I said, one that kept the spirit of the originals, but made it its own thing. That was pretty good. Likewise, when the second one, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, came out, I thought, oh, let's not do a sequel. It was fine. Sequels are usually inferior products. The story didn't, let's not fall into the trap the originals fell into, where it wasn't meant to have a sequel. We got to have a sequel to everything. And again, I was wrong. Dawn for the Planet of the Apes is another awesome movie, upping the stakes, expanding the world, genuinely complex and interesting characters. So awesome. Now we come to this one. And I want to say this first, that I like this movie. This was a good movie. But it proved me wrong again, because this is the one I'm like, oh, this is going to be the best. This looks so good. And it's just good. Which, for this series, just being good is in itself just a little disappointing. The story is fantastic and all that, and we'll talk about everything that's good about it, but I think this one is suffering from a little bit of trilogy fatigue. You can feel it's kind of winding down, which is what it's supposed to do. But honestly, what I think the problem is it feels like there should have been a third movie in between the second movie and this one. I felt like this is actually the fourth film in a series, because it feels like this is more of the climax of the story, and we never get the rising action. Or I'm sorry, that's a bad metaphor. We got the rising action in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. We've never hit the climax, but this movie's all falling action. It's all fallout. We don't actually, I think this film also has a problem false advertising. Pardon me while I switch hands here. And again, problem with doing this walking instead of driving. Gotta switch the camera angle a little bit. This one, yeah, again, it feels like there should have been another movie in there. It feels like this one suffers from a little bit of false advertising, you know, because it's called War for the Planet of the Apes. We don't really see the war. You know, the title and the trailers and all that leads you to believe this is going to be a movie about, you know, apes fighting humans for the world. And there really is none of that. There's a little bit of it in the beginning, but the rest of it is more just kind of fallout from stuff. It feels like the war has been going on. We haven't gotten to see it. Ironically, what I think they should have done is if they had switched titles and the one before this one was called War for the Planet of the Apes and this one was called Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, I think it would have been fine. It wouldn't have, you know, kind of put you off so much. So again, it's not that this movie's bad. This movie is not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it's weaker than its brothers. It doesn't have a lot of the things that made the other two really, really spectacular pictures, and just kind of regulates it to good. And I think one thing that's missing is the moral gray area. And the person I got to put that on, I got to say the worst thing about this movie. There is one thing that is really bad about this movie, and I think that is one of the things that really takes it down from the other two. Is the other two didn't have this problem at all, and I think it has one really bad actor, and that's Woody Harrelson. I know some people really love him, and I know they really love him in that Natural Born Killers character that he excels at, but that didn't work here. They wanted to create a villain. They wanted a bad guy, a heavy, just a regular action movie villain. That's fine. But this series has excelled from the fact that there are no bad guys. It's people in bad situations that do bad things with the complete belief that they are right. You know, you look at Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and Gary Oldman's character, who was kind of the human bad guy, but you totally got where he was coming from. And even Koba, the bad ape, you totally got where he was coming from. So even though we knew that these were our villains, the fact that we understood their motivations, I think, spoke to the complexity of the world. It wasn't a bad guy, good guy thing. This one, and it could be because that's what they wanted to do with it. It could be that's the direction they wanted to go. They may have wanted to go in a much less gray area and really speak of this guy's the bad guy kind of thing. But I think it takes away from it. You know, it makes it less Planet of the Apes and more Avatar, the James Cameron one. This is the bad guy, humans bad, nature good, and, you know, nothing in between. And again, that'd be fine for most pictures. But this one, I feel, it hurts it. And I honestly believe, even if that was the direction they wanted to go, that with a better actor in Woody Harrelson's part, they could have kept some of that moral gray area and made the character more interesting. The character, he's this colonel, okay, who of course is out to kill apes for various reasons. And he has this big long soliloquy about how the virus that has killed off most of humanity has mutated and is now causing humans to start losing the power of speech and reverting back to a more primal state of being. Basically hinting that this is how humans got to be the way they were in the original Planet of the Apes. And he gives this big monologue about doing this, and his son was one of the first that came down with it, and he had to make the choice to, kill the infected so that it didn't spread and all this, that, and the other thing. And in this monologue, there's just so many great points to go, wow, we totally get where this guy's coming from. That's what you do when there is a contamination. You've got to burn the bodies, you've got to quarantine the people. It sounds terrible, but it's the truth. So you could get where he's coming from. And I think if you had a stronger actor, that could have gotten across. It's also interesting when you realize that the little girl you see in the trailers, Nova, is this little girl who's suffering from this latest strain of the virus, and she can't speak. But what you see from her is that even though she can't speak, she can still reason. She's not an idiot. She's not a monster or a beast. She just can't talk. She learns how to sign. She can communicate. She can still function. She can still make choices. So we never see the proof that this is actually turning people into more de-evolutionized versions of ourselves. And I like that. Because what that says about Woody Harrelson's character is that, much like we do, again, wonderful allegory for modern times, you've got somebody who sees one part of the problem and just goes off and says, well, that's it. This thing happened, so that obviously means this is all happening, and overreacts and goes, well, the problem is we got to shoot everything, So that's a really cool thing. But this monologue he gives, he sounds almost like he was happy to do it. Like he was happy to kill his son. And yeah, it just doesn't work. He doesn't work in this role. Okay. Even from the point of view of they were definitely going for a much more black and white hero villain kind of thing this time, it still didn't work. He did not work as an actor, and it doesn't. I think that just pulls the whole film down, because these films have been marked by some really great actors doing some really great performances, both with CG and without. Even James Franco. I don't care if you don't like James Franco. He did really well in the first film. And I don't want to put all the blame on Woody Harrelson, because it's not all his fault. But he definitely stands out like a sore thumb. And again, I think, like I said, the whole thing about it being the war for the Planet of the Apes, not actually being in a war. The main battle is between the human factions. We don't get anything really cool like we got in the first two, like the gorilla attacking the helicopter, or Koba dual-wielding machine guns on horseback. We don't get any of those really cool images. The apes are more caught in the middle than they are players. And again, that's not a bad thing. It's just not as strong as it could have been. I'm gonna loop around now, going back the other way. So, this is all coming off like I didn't like this movie. And that's not true. I did like this movie. I'm just saying that when you set expectations really high, it's really easy to lower them. You do something that's okay, and it feels more disappointing than if you just gave me the okay thing. But this isn't bad. Like, everything that was good about the other movies is still good about this one. The CGI is amazing. And this film, again, just like its predecessors, just like the original Apes movies, understood, uses the technology and uses the special effects to help tell the story. It isn't the crutch, like, again, for Cameron's Avatar, where the whole thing is, well, it looked beautiful, but, the story and acting was crap. The CGI really helps tell the stories. And you got to give a lot of props to the actors. And Andy Serkis gets all the credit because he's doing the heavy lifting. But there are 4 or 5 other main ape actors who are doing all this other stuff, and they deserve, everybody who's doing the motion capture deserves big props. because it just looks fantastic. It's evolved even from the original, from Rise. I mean, you can legitimately believe that you are watching Apes. I gotta give big props to, I don't know her name. This is her first movie, but the little girl who you see in the trailers, who is Nova, and if you're a fan of the original series like I am, you get that reference like that. You kind of know who they're going for, kind of the minute you meet her. Who does just some amazing things. She's so good and so cute and so sweet, not in an annoying way. Partially probably because she's not talking. But she conveyed, this whole movie, not just her, but one of the great things about all these new Apes movies is so much is conveyed without dialogue. It's through sign language or through the way they look at one another. You know, so much of what they're feeling and communicating is all just how they look. And the ape actors do a great job of that. And she does a really good job of that. And you know that must have been hard. One, being so young. Two, because you know she's doing it with a bunch of guys and girls in like gray leotards with dots painted on their faces. And she's given it such a great performance. So it's not quite X-23 and Logan good, but it's pretty damn good. And she was a really great centerpiece for the movie. They also introduced a new ape, and I don't think they ever said his name, but it's this little bald ape they find who also talks, and he's kind of the comic relief character. And he's a great comic relief character without being annoying or without forcing it. So I really like that. I also like I said, I talked a lot about nonverbal communication in these movies. But another thing I really love is how not just Caesar, but a lot of the apes that you've met that come back, like Rocket or Maurice, have these very well-defined personalities. And again, never speak a word, or they speak very little. You know, Maurice just says, Nova, your name is Nova. That's it. And the rest of everything he has, the rest of his character, is all based off of how he looks and how he moves and the sign language. And that's great storytelling. Directorially, acting, the technology. Again, this is why these movies are so good and why they are a great example of how you can use all this stuff to enhance your story and not just make it the focal point. Special effects, woo. So yeah, a lot of that's great. And it really is a wonderful kind of way to end the series. So, wrapping up, because I'm not sure what else to say really. I think I've talked about everything. These movies are really good. And this is a fine way to kind of end it. I hope they end it. I hope this is the last one. Because, and even though I've been proven wrong before, I don't want to see them do a remake of Planet of the Apes. A straight up remake. I think they can leave it where it is. We've done this. We've told kind of the new origin story. And you can just kind of imagine how it all picks up when Charlton Heston lands. If they have to go and do another one of these, if they really, really have to, I would say set it after the original Apes movie. Show what happens after this talking ape or talking human has been introduced to these to this ape society, and now kind of how that changes everything. I would like to see a story, if they got to do another one, of apes and humans trying to coexist. Kind of like what they tried to do with the original sequels and where those ended up. That it went from humans being the protagonist and apes being the antagonists. Then in the third film they switched it up, so the apes were now the good guys. And then kind of the last film, Battle for the Planet of the Apes, which wasn't that good. It was this whole thing about humans and apes trying to live together. You know, if you're a fan of Mystery Science Theater, that's where The Lawgiver comes from. And I think if you've got to go and do another one of these, let's see something like that. Let's see a story where humans and apes now have to learn to live together. We've done a couple films on why they can't and all that. Now let's see them try to put it together. If you have to do a fourth one, which, again, I don't think they should do. Or, okay, the other option, if you don't want to do that, if you have to do a fourth one, again, give us that in-between picture. Give us the Rogue One of the Apes movies. Because I think there was a lot that went on in between Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes that we didn't get to see. And I'd like to see it. But for a final trilogy of a series that was never supposed to work in the first place, I think it did its job. I think it's good. If you're a fan of the Apes movies like I am, and I've been a fan of all of them, except Tim Burton, of course, you won't be disappointed. I think it does things that other blockbusters wish they could do. This film is complex, interesting, heartfelt, and has a lot to say. The metaphor is thinner this time than in the previous ones, but there's still multiple layers to it. So I think there's a lot to unpack there and a lot to watch in these movies and kind of think about, what does this say? What does it mean? What's it getting at? So I liked it. Not as strong as its brother films, but, you know, a good enough kind of ending. So that's my review. Should be back in Tennessee soon. Getting ready to start school up again. Start going to the movies a little bit more often. Start turning these out a little bit quicker again. So don't think I'm going to do another one of these till I get home. But if I do, happy surprise. If not, drive safe, walk safe, and I'll see you at the movies.